So, hello everybody. My name is Marcel, and I'm a senior here at Common Ground. I'd like to first start off with thanking the panelists for watching, and then I also like to say that the purpose of this presentation. First off is to show my growth as a leader. Second off is to show what 21st century skills I'm taking with me into the future. And so, what that brings us to is how I see myself. I see myself as a cottonwood tree. They grow fast and tall and are highly dependent on their environment. Unlike myself where I can't grow physically tall, but the skills I learn and the knowledge I gain make me feel like a cottonwood tree. The skills and knowledge I learn are highly dependent on the environment I'm in, so I can't learn to swim inland. And then next is that the cottonwood tree reaches far. It has a wide branch span. And so that's where my skills are. The skills I have in whatever location they're at, they reach far out and connect to different points within myself and to other skills. But however, based on limitations of the actual skill or of other people or what I'm doing, those branches or skills can only go as far out as they can. And like the cottonwood tree, it gives self-sacrifice in order to help others out. Specifically, like birds giving a spot to nest, and other small animals and vermin a place to sleep and nest at near the base. But also, there's other materials that the tree would give. So like if it's a production tree, it would give its own wood in order to benefit humankind. As for myself, I would give my own resources to help others out in order to either A, help them learn, or B, advance themselves in what they're trying to do. For instance, in work. And like any cottonwood tree, I'm unique. You may find others that are similar in many ways. However, there's just things about that one tree, that one leader, that makes them unique. And so, like a tree, like a leader, they have to relate to power. So, the four things that I see that a leader needs in order to demonstrate power are perseverance, open-mindedness, determination, and adaptability. When it comes to perseverance, the leader has to demonstrate lots of effort and respect in what they do. They have to keep doing what they're doing in order to get it done, regardless of how hard it is or how long it takes. Next, it requires the leader to be open-minded, taking in criticism and opinions and what's happening and what is being planned. That takes the form of wonder and respect, because the leader has to be able to question what not only themselves are doing, but what opinions are coming in. So like, what is the best option to take within a group? But then also with respect, it comes into the form of that the leader has to be able to not only take in criticism and opinions, but able to form that into other options and make it more, clarify it to others. Next is adaptability. And so a leader who cannot be adaptable would be a leader who is harder to, would be harder to be a full-on leader. Being adaptable requires the leader to show a great deal of wonder and more effort, because the leader needs to be able to question what they themselves are, but also question what they have to be in order to fit the role. So like fitting a piece of bread to whatever needs to be done. And so when it comes to effort, being adaptable may not always be easy. So you would always have to give your best in order to actually get it right. And then finally, it's determination that a leader needs. When it comes to becoming determination, the leader needs to know what they're doing and make the right decisions when needed. This takes the form of ownership and wonder. Ownership and pride. When A determined leader should be able to take ownership to what they know and what they should learn, but also what decisions they make. When the leader takes ownership of the decisions they make, they're owning up to being the leader of the group. And they also have to take pride in the decisions they do, because if a leader does not take pride in their decisions, then they cannot full-heartedly follow through with what they're trying to do. And so next, for my first reflection I'd like to share is about dropping the effort on the egg. And so, defining effort, I see it as ingenuity, persistence, and problem solving. And as you can see with the arrows on the slide, I closely related to each portion of effort into the main portion of the process of doing this project. And so last year in the physics class, over the course of about 3-4 weeks, we had to design an apparatus of where we drop an egg from first 10 feet and then about 30 feet into a target, and we would be graded on how accurate we are and if the egg survives the fall. And so when it came to ingenuity, I had to be clever, original, and inventive to what I do. And so that closely came into the designing and building portion of the process. When we were given the chance to do prior research, however, because I wanted to be original and be inventive, I decided not to do prior research and go completely off of what I know, which allows me to put more effort into it and allow me to do it the way I want to do it and less outside influence. When it comes to persistence, mainly in building, but also in the repeating portion of the process, it just takes a lot of time to do the builds. I did about 4 trials. 3 of them were bad. The egg did not survive. And so, when each time building, it took me a few hours in order to actually build. And so, personally, I would have a choice during the day of when to stop or when to quit for the day and start again the next day. However, because I wanted to do it not so much in one block, but so much as get it all done so that A, I learn it, and B, it's out of the way because it's just one lengthy project. It just takes a lot out of you. And especially since with the 4 trials, a lot of work. And then finally is problem solving, of which I closely related to repeating the process each time, but it also goes into the testing portion. Because each time the apparatus dropped, I would have to see where the structure failed and what I can improve on and what I can take out. But this also goes into the designing portion because I have to guess of what would go wrong within the structure and to estimate how much the egg can take before the egg breaks on me inside the apparatus. And so, learning around the egg are the 21st century skills. So, at first I had to be innovative, so being original and inventive, several trials, and deciding not to do prior research in order to do it correctly, in my vision. And then next, it was being articulate. During the process, we had to record what we had to do, so we had to sketch down each part of the process. We had to do a brainstorm. We also had to write build instructions if we were to sell our apparatus as a kit in the store, of which I found is very hard to do when you're trying not to make very complicated sketches in one step. It is also very hard to figure out how you can explain something that is worded very awkwardly and hard to say, but when you're doing it with your hands, it's very simple. Then next, we also had to do a lab report, of which was the overall process of what we've done, how it turned out, and any other details we want to share. Of which the abstract portion of the lab report would essentially be the newspaper publishable portion. And so that had to be met at a lower diction than the rest of the lab report. And then finally, for 21st century skills, I learned management in both time and workload. Now, management can come easily to some people, especially those who are natural-born leaders, but there's always room for improvement. When it came to managing the time, I had to figure out how much time I had to spend on each portion of the process, but also I had to keep in mind how much time of the day and how much sleep I'm getting during the day and at night in order to do the project. Because I would stay up as long as I needed and work through, sometimes while eating, to get this done. And then next is the workload. About 4 days or so of at home, pretty much non-stop working, breaks only for personal hygiene and eating. And just sitting over, slightly hunched over in a chair on a desk, working almost non-stop. And organization is not my best thing, so it's a little cluttered on that desk, so that's another form of management that can be pushed off to the side for now. And so, since I did it during that 4-day period, that was a part of the workload. So each day I'd work as much as I can on one design, figure out what went wrong, what did go well, and see how I can improve it, and then start designing the next apparatus from there. So next, what I want to talk to you about, finally, is the cycle of the egg. So what I'm taking into the future as a leader. So I'm taking in determination, being open-minded, trial and error, and patience. And so with determination, the choices I made were critical because adding weights or taking out weights made a difference in how much force the apparatus would hit the ground. But also that would affect on how accurate the apparatus would land in the circle. But next was being open-minded. Since I was working mostly at home and talking to a few friends via texting, I would get few opinions on how it could go, how it should go, and how things work. And so, if you can see in the picture, the tail here, I have done like several times, like maybe 4 or 5 or so times, each a little bit differently, and each time a different directional for the popsicle sticks. That was only because I did not know of much of aerodynamics, so I did not really know how it would work until I kept doing it and learned how it worked. And that also came with getting like opinions and input from my father, who knows a little bit about a lot. And so next is trial and error. Everything doesn't go the way you want it. And as being a leader, that's almost always the case. And so being able to accept whatever errors you have and doing it again in whatever way you need to, as long as you're able to do it, is one of the better things to learn to be a leader. And so next is patience. Not everything is just a quick and easy slap together and you're done. Sometimes it takes time. In this case, it was waiting for glue to dry and not burning my fingers while trying to get it to cool faster. But also it was just keeping patience with myself and trying to get things done so that I don't overwork myself. So next I want to direct you towards the pride of the leaf. And so the way I define pride is with courage, risk-taking, and leadership. And so when it comes to courage with pride, it's really about saying what is wrong. Not necessarily always into other people, but you understand like what is the difference, and you have someone to talk about what should be done or what is right. But also courage takes the form of doing what you need to do, regardless of whether it puts yourself at risk or it just takes more time to do. And so that goes into risk-taking, however, and then that's part of taking part of self-sacrifice, like a cottonwood tree. And so whether it's mental or physical, you kind of have to get the task done, and by some means that does mean putting yourself at risk. So maybe setting up barbed wire up on 6-7 foot tall fence on a steep hillside. Not fun. And so it's also what I found with Leaf was working with not so much heavier machinery, but just working with a variety of tools at once. So one day we would work with workshop tools. So we worked the chop grinder, and we even got to use the welder. But also we go out, we do different tasks during the day, and so that would give us opportunity to be close to like a tractor, and working with a tractor that has the bucket raised to the full and having a 30 or so pipe leaning against it again on heavy winds is a kind of risk taking, but it's part of the job to get done. And in this case, losing a few less than $200 worth of material if you do it wrong. And so then it's leadership for pride, because if you don't have as much pride as a leader, then it's harder for others to see yourself as an active leader. And so in the way that we demonstrated this during Leaf was being a leader for a day. So we'd act as like the person that gives the tasks. So the leader of the day would receive whatever task that needs to be done from our advisor, and then during the day as we work, we would continue on with whatever tasks we were given and keep everyone on track. But also this goes off the work field. We would go during our off time and during the morning before we go to work, the leader would have to wake everyone up if they're not already up, but also keep things according to plan, though it's not always the case. And so next is what you learn as a Leaf. And so what I learned was teamwork, making compromises, and goals. And so when it came to being a Leaf, it took a lot of teamwork, because not a lot of the tasks you can do on your own or with one other person. However, that's less cost effective for the whole organization in order to do. So getting more people to work with you and in sync gets you to work more productively. And so tasks like setting up that barbed wire fence that's like 6-7 feet tall along a couple hills in like a half-mile stretch goes a lot faster when everyone's doing the same job, clipping in the barbed wire onto the fence. And so in other times where we had to walk the prairie and have a hoe on our back, and we had to go around and find thistle, specifically non-native thistle, so bull thistle and Canada thistle being two. And so we would occasionally find large patches of thistle where with one person it would just take an hour, 2 hours easily, but as a group of us together, it took us easily 10-15 minutes each patch. But also it helped us survey the prairie side a lot easier, because we'd spread out about 20-30 feet and then walk and then continue looking on the ground, seeing where the thistle are and chopping those up. And so next is compromising. So some days we have to make compromises of whether we choose to switch days of what we want to eat for dinner or breakfast, or choose to work a little bit longer one day in order to work less the next day. And so when it came to compromising, sometimes it became more difficult, because that also meant shifting around who works what day. Because as leader of the day, we also have made a schedule of who's the leader of the day and then who does what chores during the day. So that included getting breakfast ready and then putting it away, who makes lunches, who makes dinner, and who does cleanup after dinner. Of which some people would, one person might be on dinner crew, but a switch may put the person both on lunch crew and dinner crew, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but we still make the compromise of switching what we have to do in order to make dinner done and make lunch done at the same time. And so next is goal settings. So whether it's interpersonal or problem solving, we also use each other, and when we were self-supervised, we had to set goals for ourselves. We had to take small goals in order to reach our larger goal. Some days we had to set off a goal in order to achieve a different goal to later achieve that same goal we set off earlier. And so when it came to problem-solving goals, sometimes where some things were missing, we have to improvise of what we had to do. So instead of using pliers in order to try and get a clip around the T-post in order to clip the barbed wire to the fence, we would use each other to support the barbed wire or get the clip around the T-post in order to get that part done. Because as you go along, it does get tight, so it does make it harder to work with. Especially when it's over your head and you're kind of on your tippy toes trying to reach it. And so, when it came to interpersonal goals, it was all our goals for all of us, it was our goal to get to know each other and work effectively with each other. However, sometimes that wasn't the case where we have some arguments, but we make goals and we solve the problem and we continue on with the month. And so, that also involved using each other. So as you can see in the picture, this one right here is holding the pipe straight up, directly perpendicular to the ground, because this is the overflow pipe that will go with the new flow well that's going to be placed here. There is a slight support just beyond him to hold the pipe in place, but that's not enough so that the others could actually put more pipes to the end. And so, in things like that, or when we had to remove the actual floorboards, which range anywhere between a 2x4 set into a circular platform, to anywhere to about a 6x6, 7x7 bricks and logs that we had to move out of the way and then later put back as a water director. And then when it came to self-supervision, there were some days and some tasks, like walking along the prairie, or at times, when we had to remove the floorboards, we didn't have our mentor, or we didn't have our supervisor with us. So we had set our own goals along with our supervisor and mentor to do what we need to do, and then get that done before or as they get back. Because in this case, we had to ride on the back of a kabuto, which is a machine, consider a truck with tracks, and with a hydraulic flatbed back. We had to ride on the back of that and on the tractor in order to get across the marsh in order to get to this work site. And so, since we cannot drive with the tractor or with the kabuto, we had to stay there while they fetch all the material and then bring the other two back in order to get things done. Which is a lengthy process, but you gotta do what you gotta do. And so, this comes to the cycle of the leaf. What me as a leaf would take into the future. And so, goal setting, adaptability, and management became the big portion of this. A leader who can't set goals, I would personally say, hardly a leader at all. Only because a leader needs to be able to set goals for not only themselves, but for the group as a whole. Not necessarily by themselves, but as a group lead goal setting. Because without goals, then it kind of puts to shame what each person is trying to do. So you're essentially giving significance to each task, no matter how small or how big it is to the whole operation. And then, when it comes to goal setting, you also want to set it to different aspects. So I generally set it towards, in this case, management and not wearing myself out too much in one day. And then it came to adaptability, because some days we go from working indoors, working outdoors, finding a thunderstorm coming our way and starting to happen as we work out in the middle of a prairie, where we had to rush, get the tractor on the back of a flatbed, seal that down, and then get back to the our house per se, and then work on other things. Of which the day that did happen, we worked on workshop skills. And so things like that, where it went from casual, picking up sticks, throwing them onto a big bonfire, down to rushing, getting everything together, and getting to the truck, having lunch on the go, and then getting back to the workshop, and then slowing back down again, getting workshop stuff done, and then heading back out again after the storm. And so then finally it came to management, where for the leaf, it came down to, for self and others, task, money, and agenda. And so when being the leader of the day not only requires you to distribute tasks and make sure everyone's on task during the day, but it also requires you to knowing where and what each person is doing. Not necessarily inside the house, but when we're out and about, in the store, buying whatever foods we need for the next 2 or 3 days, since it's a half-hour drive alone each way. And so we need to know what we need, what we have, but also what we could get, what we should get, and what we actually need. When it came to task, money, and agenda, we had a budget of about $3,100 in order for the whole month. And all of us thought that would be either just barely scraping it or not enough for us to adequately have fun, eat, and pay for gas. But as it turned out, we managed our money so well, and it came to each person individually, that we managed to save about $1,100 by the end of the month. So we only spent about $2,000 on everything we needed, from gas, food, and entertainment. Then again, we also had a lot of entertainment, in-home entertainment. We had a pool table, and then we also had a VHS player, so just buy some popcorn and we're all set. And then when it came to management for tasks, distributing it amongst others and making sure each task gets done. And then with the agenda, is leader of the day and then assigning who gets what job on what days during the week. And so finally, it's the future, common ground, and me. What I'm taking away from both 21st century skills and as a leader is that management plus articulation plus making compromises and innovation makes it a good engineer, of which I want to go for environmental engineering or mechanical engineering. The universities I would like to go to is either the University of New Hampshire for environmental engineering or North Dakota State University for mechanical engineering. But when it comes to an engineer, the engineer helps people both directly and indirectly. For an environmental engineer, they help a company, if not making parts to what would be more cost effective in also the terms of being more environmental friendly. But they could also advise to companies of why they should or should not renovate a land for whatever their use is. For a mechanical engineer, it's the most indirect way, because you're making parts or designing parts that people will then use. It's within the car industry, people don't know the names of the engineer who created that cylinder, or who designed the cylinder, or designed the engine, or any part of the actual car that makes it run. They just know that a company made it for them to buy. But an engineer also affects people in one way or another. Whether, again, it's directly or indirectly, it could be for the positive or even the negative, because people don't like stuff breaking on them. But when things do work out the way you want it, but also when stuff that you do have affects others other than yourself, it's one of the better feelings of being an engineer, but also as a leader. But like a leader, every engineer is different, only because each engineer has different knowledge in different fields. Like every person knows a little bit about a lot. And so this affects the person's capabilities to what they're able to do, what they can help others with. And so that brings me to conclude to thank you and accept any questions.
You started with your definition of leadership, and you talked about perseverance, you talked about being adaptable, and you talked about being determined. And that was clearly demonstrated with your first artifact in regards to when you were doing the egg drop. And I guess my question then would become, you definitely demonstrated patience with that, but it also seemed like you really enjoyed what it was that you were doing. So sort of repeating and then trial and error, it almost became sort of a game or a challenge for you. I guess my question then will be, can you think of any other class, any other project in which you had to pretty much go through that same type of trial and error, sort of, you actively decided, like, okay, I'm not going to do this research, I'm just going to start kind of from scratch. Can you think of another time when you were in another class with another project in which you actually did do some research and it almost seemed like failure was imminent, but you kind of stuck with it?
I would have to say that'd be my senior seminar essay, which is not one of my reflections. However, it is something that if I were to start writing off the bat and then do research in order to get evidence, I would definitely have failed it more so than I would have on the first or second draft. And so when I found out that researching would be easier, though not necessarily easy itself, it made it a lot easier to continue through the process once I picked out what I need in order to write the essay.
And that was the essay for this
senior seminar this year, yep.
And talk about the essay. What did you write about?
Oh, so I wrote about youth development within the nature setting. So the way I see it is taking youth, making a program or making an extension to a ready-made program and taking them out into the woods more so than any other programs would. So something like a venture club, however, you're not so much, it's camping so much, but you're actually learning about what's around you, what's happening. And so I found research on the benefits of youth development, so it came down to mostly becoming a better person overall, but also being more knowledgeable to what happens to you. To be honest, it's a great topic because it's kind of everything around us, so why not try and look into it?
Your opening slide, the title of the presentation talked about being a good leader requires being a follower.
Mm-hmm.
Could you say a little bit more about why you chose that as the title for your presentation?
Yes. So for me, though some people may not see it, I actually started out as a follower. When it came down to working at Green Jobs Corps or at any other site, I would always be listening intently, looking carefully to how it's done, and just following a good leader. And so when it came down to me actually doing it and showing it to others, I've realized that it's helped to actually just be the good follower in order to be a good leader. And so when it came down to like working on the farm, I didn't know how to work the beds. I didn't know where everything was. And so once I learned the works, I learned where everything was, how things work, and some little its and bits of make it easier, make it harder, however you want to make it for others.
Marcel, I was curious, which of when you reflect on your experiences here and with the programs outside of school, when you reflect, where do you think that you could stand to have the most growth? Where do you think that you would like to focus your energies?
Where I would like to focus my energy.
In other words, thinking about the power standards, 21st century skills, what do you need to work on?
I would say I would need to work on most is wonder, because I accept things as they are. So if you tell me something that I know absolutely nothing about, I'll just take it as is and just follow what you're telling me until I learn more about it. So like when it came to writing, I barely know anything about writing. I just follow what I see. But when it came to like senior seminar and APLAC at the same time, it was just, okay, this is how you do it, this is why you do it, and this is how you can play around with it. So then once I knew how to like actually mold it into the way I want it, that's where I know that I could start questioning it better than I would have if I didn't know anything about it.
Well, a follow-up to that. Can you speak a little bit about how you have changed, evolved since day one at Common Ground to today?
Well, if you take a look at me freshman year and now, you could definitely see some similarities, but you definitely won't see the same person. So when I came in, I was a little bit shy because I barely knew anyone, but then again, how many people know a lot of people in the school they go to? But I was learning the works, I had different expectations for high school, and I really just wanted to get through it and just get going. But now that I've been here for 4 full years, I kind of want to stay. I don't want to leave. Because I'd be missing out on good opportunities that I have yet to take part in, so like some of the school's special classes. But I'd also miss my teachers, friends, and anyone else that comes to site. But when it comes to like working around here, you get to meet community. And anywhere else I could work at, I don't really meet community. I just meet 1 or 2 people and that's it. But then also, I grew as a leader most of all, only because when I came into Common Ground, I've been told I was a good leader, but I never knew officially to me what it meant to be a leader. But also, I was in Boy Scouts beforehand and have been for many years. Well, pretty much my whole life I've been in Boy Scouts, except for like the past 2 or 3 years. But I've learned the basis of how to be a leader and how to enact as a leader. But I never actually learned like power. I never learned what it meant to be a leader, given a certain standard. And with such a standard like Common Grounds with power, I see why it's important to incorporate these kind of aspects into a leader.
Have you been able to share some of what you've learned with your friends, your colleagues, fellow students? In other words, have you been able to pass some of that on, you think? If so, how?
Definitely. I've taken opportunity in many of the programs here at school, whether it's for 1 day or full semesters or years. And so that's giving me the opportunity of not only be a leader, but also work managerial positions. So like for environmental ventures here at Common Ground, I was able to be the manager for both the broiler group and the composting group. For now, it's composting group for my 2nd semester, but regardless, I get to show what I know, but also teach the others who are coming into the crew and don't know as much as I do, what I know and the ways that they can do it and how it happens and where it ends up. Especially with like things with like the broiler group. Many people don't know where their chicken meat comes from, but with the broilers group, I get to not only teach them but lead them in where it starts, how it goes, and the process of how it goes on. And that also goes into like monitoring the chickens, make sure that they stay healthy, and keeping an adequate mind of things do change, things do go absolutely wrong. And so you just have to adapt to that and just keep going and work through it until you can actually get it done or make it for the better.
Thank you.
Yes?
You mentioned Common Ground and the community that you're going to miss, and that it's harder to find community when you go out to other places. And I don't know if you have an answer to this, but how might you be able to help build community in places you go?
Besides helping build community in the places I've already been, so like helping with a senior project my freshman year, the Fresh Food Heroes, with rebuilding and remolding the garden beds up at Rivercoff. What I plan for, if I can plan for, in helping make or build communities, in the future is more of I have to wait mostly till I'm after university and once I'm getting to a job. Because if I don't have a job, I don't have as much resources as another person would. And if you don't have resources, it's harder to do things that you need. So that make it, not only make it much harder, but it tests you, if you do it early, it tests your managerial skills and the way you can adapt to whatever you have and as you gain things. But however, if I do start early, it does help me build more skills that I could keep on to later on. So like being able to write for grants or helping myself or the group I'm with in order to raise donations to fund our project or whatever we're trying to do. As opposed to when I do have my own resources, I can devote my own resources in and have it done much faster. But that takes away some of the skills that one would learn.
I've got a follow-up question. So, where Common Ground, a lot of people say Common Ground has a lot of well, we talk about Common Ground, say it's a big community, right? But we also talk about there are all these little communities within Common Ground, right? Which community have you, like guidance or like some of the clubs, for example, or jobs, like which community do you
Belong in?
Well, which has been the strongest bond for you? Which community at Common Ground?
Well, I'd say it's a competition between the farm and Adventure Club because I love working and I love working on the farm, but I also like going out on adventures and essentially hiking out, knowing little of what's around you and what way to go in order to find civilization again. Both are equally exciting in their own ways.
Sometimes a little too exciting.
You know, sliding down part of the West Rock is its own excitement from finishing big tasks on the farm.
And you've done those as part of groups. You're not doing it by yourself, right? So, and have you found people you never would have found, or you know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
There are some people at the school and some staff members I definitely wouldn't have been able to meet, nor have enough courage to actually talk to them if it were not for like different programs I were in. So like Drama Club exposed me to not only speaking my mind, but also helped me to speak to others. Adventure Club introduced me to new people and different ways to interact with them. Working on the farm allowed me to interact with people on the work site, so it's a little bit more professional, but also casual. But also, in like our guidance groups, couldn't speak more than my open mind if I do speak at all.
So,
I have a comment too, sorry. I guess I just, two things. I think to Mr. E's point about community, I think community also can be important just to like support yourself, you know? And so when you go on to college, you also can think about, you know, developing community with friends, with teachers that can be supportive to you, you know, in that process. And you might not necessarily even be working towards a specific goal, but that community that you're also contributing to is supporting you and other people. And also just something for the public record in this instance. The farm is going to really feel your absence when you leave. And I feel like you in a big way have made an impact on the farm community and on the Green Jobs Corps community. I can tell you last year when Farmer Shannon was out for multiple different instances, that I counted on you more than any other adult at this place, you know, to have a handle on some of the farm related stuff. So I just want you to know that, and for this whole room to know that.
that's quite a testimony.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't leave, Marcel.
Well,
No, leave.
Yeah, actually leave.
if I do happen to not be able to go to University of New Hampshire or North Dakota State, and I do happen to go to University of New Haven, I will be here often. So.
Always have a home.
But what TW said is important, Marcel. I mean, everything that there's a lot of planning behind some of these things in Common Ground that aren't always apparent. That planning part isn't apparent, but like you will find those places. Look for them because that support is important, you know? Sometimes you give a lot, sometimes you need to take too.
Mhm.